All right. You want to start the Actually, what time? It's 6:59. Let's wait until 7.
No, we gotta wait till.
Let's wait like another 30
No, it's 7:01. Let's wait till 7:30.
And you're re-listening to you and Clay on the last episode.
Yeah.
Talking about your gear was the most adorable thing I have heard.
That is what guitar players do. We just need to talk shop.
Like you were like, what's your rig look like? And he was like, hell yeah, dude. And like you both got just so hyped for each other to talk about pedals and
that it is a blessing and a curse.
It was really wholesome and adorable.
Well, I am glad you enjoyed it.
And I loved it.
And hopefully our viewers enjoy it.
Listeners.
No.
They don't view us. They listen to
They're
us.
viewing us with their ear holes.
No. I've installed cameras.
Oh.
We're actually live right now. Coming to you from New York City. It's fucking Diamonds. That better be the damn intro for this episode. If it's not, I'm quitting.
Oh my god. I'm quitting the band.
I'm quitting the band, man. I'm breaking up the band. Oh,
you boy. I don't know why you both looked at me so expectantly.
We wanted input, I guess.
You looked like a deer in headlights.
I really was. I had nothing.
Yeah, you were just like...
It's a Megan Andrew thing that's happening. I am unsure of how to proceed.
Yabba-da-bop-ba-da-bop.
Yabba dabba doo.
I apparently have an update on my phone.
So is one of us gonna do an intro? Or
are you saying my intro was not good, Chris?
Well, no. That's just the name of the show. Who are we? What is our essence? What do we bring to the marketplace?
Spunk.
Yep.
Copious amounts of spunk.
Just
pleasure to
boatloads.
Boatloads and buttloads of spunk. We got audible pleasures for the ear holes of the masses.
Dripping charisma from most of our orifices.
Awesome. That's great. Okay.
Absolutely all of mine are dripping.
All right.
With charisma.
Enough out of you two. Welcome back to Podcast in the Sky with Diamonds, everybody. I am Meg Muse, one of your hosts. Sitting across from me is Andrew Terbeezy.
Hi, I am dripping with charisma.
And to my right is Chris Fellow.
To be honest, I've got so much charisma coming out that it hurt. My holes hurt a little bit.
All your holes? Because
most of them.
Because your body's technically covered with a bunch of holes because of your pores.
I'm in constant pain.
This sounds
of charisma.
This sounds like an interdimensional cable commercial from Rick and Morty. My holes hurt. All my holes are seeping.
All my holes are seeping and they hurt. Please come help me.
Okay. All right. So today's episode is going to be jam-packed with a bunch of
stuff.
Yep.
We have just so you guys know, Meg prepared a goddamn 7-page Google Doc full of facts.
Yep.
And you can bet that if I have any say in it, we're going to get through 2.5 of those.
Yep.
There's a lot of stuff.
If that.
A lot of stuff.
Yes.
It's good stuff, but there's a lot of stuff.
Today we are talking about the greatest music producer in modern history and also convicted murderer.
Bum.
Phil Spector.
Spooky.
Was his full name Philip?
His full name was actually Harvey Philip Spector.
Harvey Philip Spector.
I would have gone by Harvey.
Born in New York City.
Although Phil Spector sounds more ghastly.
Yeah, he was definitely a spooky specter, that guy. I was actually just telling Chris, I watched that John and Yoko documentary that they just put on Netflix. I'm trying not to burp. I'm sorry.
Do it.
And it was all about the making of Imagine.
Yeah.
And Phil Spector produced that album.
He did.
So
it's on our 7 pages in here somewhere.
It sure is. We will talk about it more later. But they showed a lot of clips of him, and he
is a scary looking dude.
He was
wore
a weirdo.
Lot of wigs during his trial.
He also wore a lot of wigs after his car accident, which we will also discuss.
We will get to it.
We have a lot to get through. So
7 pages specifically.
We've been doing a lot of interview episodes, which is great. We have talked to a lot of really amazing musicians about their super awesome tunes.
Stuff.
And for the next few episodes, we're just going to dive into some fun rock history. And we're going to start with Phil Spector because I don't know where the fuck else we're going to start, to be honest with you. So, Phil Spector was actually born Harvey Philip Spector into a working-class Jewish family in the Bronx on December 26, 1940. His father was a steel worker, so, I mean, they were probably lower middle class, I would assume.
You could say that he was into some heavy metal.
Yeah, you could say that.
I feel like maybe even lower than that. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know how much.
And it was the
steel workers
40s,
made.
so...
I mean, we're coming out of the Depression. We still had war efforts.
There was a large middle class back then.
Yeah, middle class was growing and rather rapidly.
When was this right before World War II? No, right.
Well, it
was
would be during.
Yeah.
it'd be during / towards the end, which is when we went through a massive industrial boom coming out of the Depression and
see?
all the post-war.
So realistically, his father probably could have done a lot better, but unfortunately, at the age of 9, Spector's father committed suicide. And then a few years later, Spector and his family moved to Los Angeles in 1953.
Gee golly.
So obviously he was brought up by his widowed mother, who worked as a seamstress to make ends meet, although she was known to be rather overbearing and ultimately emotionally smothered and bullied Spector during much of his late childhood and early adolescence, which as we talk more about this is going to be a 2-part episode, and I hadn't said that yet.
I knew that and had forgotten it.
Okay, so for everybody listening, by the way,
I knew that, and I forgot to mention it. I'm like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a 2-parter, and then we just didn't say anything.
This episode, we're going to talk about Spector's life, and then in episode 2, we're going to talk about
we murder
his
the
murder
fuck
trial.
out of someone,
Yeah.
probably.
Shot her in the mouth.
So we'll probably get into that a little more later, but just so you know, from my extensive knowledge in serial killers due to all my true crime podcasts, it's not surprising that he turned out to be kind of crazy. And there's also more details to lead into that. But anyway.
Well, we'll get to that in the next episode. Come back next week. All right, see you later, guys. Bye. Good night.
So Spector admits that he was outwardly different from most of his classmates. He was a small, scrawny, and watery-eyed kid that pretty much stayed to the edges of the playground. So music was a really good remedy for his lacking social life and obvious need for expression because he was a teenager, and that's usually when we all get super angsty and need to do something about it.
Yeah, sometimes I see like family videos from like Christmas when I had long hair and wore Disturbed t-shirts.
That's terrible.
And what I was just a dickhead.
Which is
Were you
really
really?
funny if you look at how Chris
Turned
dresses now.
Yeah.
Because you dress so like
Nice.
nice.
I have a button down with anchors on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like you get that, and then you hear Chris talking about being angsty and stuff. It's just kind of funny.
Yes. So he went to Fairfax High School in California, obviously, and that's where he learned how to play guitar and tried his hand as a songwriter for the first time.
Whoa.
Yeah. It was also at Fairfax High School that he met the members of his first band, the Teddy Bears.
Shut up.
So together, Marshall Lieb, Harvey Goldstein, and Annette Kleinbard formed the music group that reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 singles chart on December 1st, 1958 with their track, To Know Him Is to Love Him.
#1 out of a whole 100?
Yeah, dude.
That's so good.
They sold over 1 million copies before
Whoa.
the end of the year.
That's
And
such a big number.
It's amazing that they only let 100 people release songs every year.
I mean,
I
I
know.
think
The 50s were a wild time like that,
it's
man.
not that they only...
Stop. Those
Hey,
are the rules.
that's crony capitalism for
That's
you.
not
That's
at all how it
McCarthyism
goes.
That's
for you.
Sure, it's
That's
McCarthyism.
period correct. So
So keep in mind, Spector was only 18 at the time that all of this happened.
what?
The title of the song was taken from an inscription on Spector's father's grave. Back
What?
What?
Just
Yeah,
wild.
fuck you.
Dude, I'm just shocked by all this knowledge that I definitely haven't read before.
I'd be interested to know what... He was 9 when his father died?
Yeah.
I'd be interested to know what his home life was like before he died.
Honestly, I couldn't find too much.
Like-
I had to Google like Spector's childhood like 4 different ways before I found a viable article
Gotta be
about
a
what his childhood was like.
Government. He's an alien.
So it was during this period that record producer Stan Ross, who was the co-owner of Gold Star Studios in Hollywood, began to tutor Spector in record production and exerted a major influence on Spector's production style into his later career.
What during? Well, how did that happen?
What were those influences?
Well, how did he get from deciding to do music to being tutored by somebody really famous?
Assumingly,
I mean,
I'm gonna take a shot in the dark, and because he had the best out of those 100 selected songs.
So, yes, I forgot about that.
It's true. And also, like, as the Teddy Bears started to write more singles, I mean, they weren't terrible, but they did increasingly worse over time. Like, I Don't Need You Anymore only reached number 91 on the charts.
But they still got to be part of those 100 songs that got released that whole year.
Everybody else got
true.
killed.
And then all of their other
Bloodsport,
singles,
Battle
including
Royale.
their album, The Teddy Bears Sing, kind of flopped. So the band split up in 1959.
But what did they sing?
And then, and then it was around that time that Stan Ross kind of picked him up, and Phil decided that he wanted to do producing instead of performing. Like, he wanted to be behind the scenes.
That's cool.
Yeah. So his next move from there was to head back to New York with the help of independent producers Lester Stills and Lee Hazelwood. And he was working with Jerry Leiber and Mike Stoller at the time, who were two really big producers during that decade. And it was there that Spector worked with.
Just fucking on the up and up. It doesn't stop.
I know. So they actually were quoted as describing Spector as egotistical, but not in a bad way. He was a little intimidating and weird. He would always wear sunglasses, even when he was inside.
It's because his future was so bright. He always had to wear shades.
He was dressed up in like 4-piece suits, all that sort of stuff. So he was always very well dressed, and also kind of.
He had a whole extra piece to his suit. That's one more piece than I have in my suit.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I wonder how many piece suits there are.
Yeah, how many pieces can you have
Like
in
a
a suit?
10-piece suit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then you have to wonder what counts as a piece. So you count like ties, ascots, pocket squares, but then you could start adding a bunch of random shit, and you could get to like a theoretical 10-piece suit.
I think probably the richest person on the planet gets the 10-piece suit.
Oh my God.
They have to travel across the globe to collect the pieces. That's the fucking campaign for the podcast, guys. Done.
Okay.
It's gonna
My
be.
name is
It's gonna be.
Daniel.
It's gonna be.
Blainview.
Oh my
Bo
God.
Gentle Jenkins, the necromancer, and whoever other ridiculous, and Ted, the evoker, and whoever else wants to be another wizard. You guys have to
Our sidekick.
Yep, and one of you better be a gnome, because gnomes are fun. And then you get to travel across the world looking for the pieces of the 10-piece suit.
Okay, I'm going back to Phil. No more Dungeons and Dragons talk for the rest of the episode.
Lame.
No promises. I'm probably going to announce at some point what
No.
class I think he is.
Okay, wonderful.
Phil
Okay.
Spector,
So-
Bard, obviously.
Oh my God.
He's a music producer.
So Phil Spector the Bard worked as a staff producer for Dune Records, where he produced a string of hits that became industry sensations.
Whoa.
Spector and Still in 1961 formed their own label, Phyllis Records, where they signed the group The Crystals, whose first single, There's No Other Baby Like My Baby, made
parentheses.
it to 20 on the
There are
Billboard
parentheses
chart.
in there.
The Crystals also did Da Do Ron Ron and Then He Kissed Me, and the Ronettes did Be My Baby and Baby I Love You, which was Spector's first songs using his wall of sound
I
technique.
thought the Ronettes did the do Ron Ron.
No, they did a cover of it.
Okay.
The Crystals did it first.
We just
Also,
listened to it in the
Ronnie
car.
was in the Crystals, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just I know that was a thing. I remember hearing about it about the Ronettes, not from the Crystals. But I know the music industry is very cannibalistic at that time. So
Yes, it was. So it was here that, like, in those 4 singles that he started experimenting with his wall of sound technique. And Spector was also known to blend conventional teen romance sentiments with orchestral arrangements of immense scale and power in what he described as little symphonies for the kids. Others called this the Wall of Sound, obviously, and the style reached its peak in 1965 with the blue-eyed soul of the Righteous Brothers epic, You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin', which was a huge worldwide hit and still is. You hear it all the time. You've lost that lovin' feeling.
I think part of the reason that I was having a hard time distinguishing when we were listening to, she was showing me examples of songs that use the wall of sound, and I was having a hard time. I felt like I was just hearing like the way songs sounded in the 70s, like just the recording fuzz and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought that I was hearing the wall of sound, and then I was thinking that maybe It's just that so many songs during a certain period of time used that technique that it just sort of became kind of ubiquitous.
People still use that technique today. And I'm going to list off a bunch of people that have used that technique. But yeah, once he started using it, it kind of caught on like wildfire. Yeah. So it was like the sound of the time.
I had heard of it before. And now I'm going to probably Bader Meinhof it to shit.
Yeah.
Andrew, you're okay. So the first time that Spector put in the same amount of effort into an LP as he did to all of these 45s and singles was when he utilized the full Phyllis roster and the Wrecking Crew to make what he felt would become like the major hit for the 1963 Christmas season. A Christmas Gift for You from Phyllis Records arrived in stores on November 22nd, 1963, which was the same day as the assassination of President Kennedy.
Oh, shit.
Okay,
there's his alibi. The rest of you are still suspect.
You just said assassination.
Assassination.
That is how you just said that.
Assassination. I'm going to stick with it.
Go back and listen to it.
No.
It's there.
Anyway, that's it's like a pretty crazy fact.
On that day, the day that Kennedy was assassinated.
Yeah, so it wasn't So A Christmas Gift for You, I'm pretty sure, is actually still popular, and at least it carried its popularity well into the 70s and 80s. I think people do.
But how does it stack up against the Christmas song Last Christmas by Wham? Can we pull some numbers?
Yeah, you can do it.
I will try. My computer is having trouble connecting to interwebs, but
so keep in mind when Spector started.
Which numbers specifically are we looking for? Like plays? Like what are we? So I know what to look for. Instead of just typing
records bought, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last Christmas sales.
So keep in mind, Spector was 18 when this whole life change basically happened, and he started writing music. So at the age of 21, after he was a billionaire and a producer of 20 consecutive hits, that he really began developing that wall of sound technique with the crystals and the runettes and whatever.
Say, like he was that was when he started developing his own technique or his own style or whatever. I was like, really, after 20 hits, is when he started to do that.
Fun fact, I owned Last Christmas on vinyl.
That's good.
Sorry. So I just remember that because it was like listing the track listing for the album. Like, oh wait, I have this record.
So the wall, as people called it, what
Jimmy Eat World apparently covered it.
The wall approach to sound production involves a process of overdubbing scores of musicians to make like this full sound, and it creates like a sort of roar, which you can tell when we list off some of the albums that he did. What that sounds like, it'll be easier to pinpoint it out. This style only served to make Spector even more of a commodity in the music industry, producing artists such as the Rolling Stones and the Beatles later on in his career. So what he would do with the wall of sound is basically fill... Stop. Why did you have to show me that right now? Did they really post it?
Yeah.
What?
Oh.
The Artisanals posted the episode that we recorded.
Well, thank you, Artisanals. Y'all are really cool, and I want to talk about more gear with you.
Okay.
Sure,
anyway.
Present for shop talk.
Okay, back to it. What he would do to create the wall of sound is basically fill like a room that was broken up into different like chambers, pretty much. And he would just fill it with musicians, all playing on a whole bunch of different instruments, and he would make them play for at least 3 hours before he started to record anything, because he wanted them to kind of like lose their individuality as they played, and it kind of blended together to create this cacophony, pretty much. Cacophony, pretty much. So that all the musicians kind of blended their style into one kind of group effort, and this is what created that wall of sound technique. So Be My Baby, written by Jeff Barry and Ellie Greenwich and produced by Phil Spector, was recorded on July 5th, 1963 at Gold Star Studios, Hollywood, by the American girl group The Ronettes, and released as a single in August 1963.
You said American Girl, and I thought you were like Going somewhere. I thought we were going to talk about dolls.
No.
Tom Petty.
Yeah, that's what I think. So it was released.
He was on King of the Hill.
He was. It was released as a single in August 1963 and later placed on their 1964 debut LP, presenting the Fabulous Ronettes featuring Veronica. Ronnie Spector.
What about all those other Ronettes? That's mean to them.
I mean, okay, yes, it is mean, but that's how.
Okay, so I'm
having crumbles.
All right, so what was the name of the other song? Just because I'm having trouble finding actual stuff, so I'm just going to compare.
No, that was an
Spotify
album. I think it was an album that he released.
What was the name of the Christmas album?
Oh, you're making me go back up.
Because Wham's Last Christmas on Spotify.
A Christmas gift for you.
This Wham's Last Christmas on Spotify has 342,079,281 plays as of this recording.
That's quite.
And the other one,
that's a fair few.
Is a Christmas. It was by the Ronettes. Right.
Christmas for You was, I think she already went back down. It wasn't by the Ronettes, I don't think, but it might have been.
Well, I'm having trouble. Wait. A Christmas Gift for You was from Phil Spector. It's a whole album. God damn it. Well, I like to think that Wham was better because I like Wham. Wham! Back to the show.
Did you see that they started following us?
No.
No.
No, I'm too busy recording this episode talking about Wham.
Okay, so we're talking about Wham.
Can we do a Wham special?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to get back to the Ronettes
80s pop rock coming to you next time, baby.
Okay. Ronnie Spector, who, I mean, that wasn't her last name at the time. She ended up marrying Phil Spector later on, is the only Ronette to appear on the single. Her future husband, Phil, produced their elaborately layered recording in what is now considered a quintessential example of his wall of sound production formula. Spector recorded a range of instruments, including guitars, saxophones, multiple pianos, and horns, with innovative studio mixing and overdubbing. He described his production method as a Wagnerian approach to rock and roll.
Hey, what?
Like Wagner?
Wagner, yeah.
Wagnerian?
I don't know.
Wagnerian. I feel like it comes out easy.
I don't know.
Wagner von Strauss.
He was a fucking composer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Austrian composer.
Wagner von Strauss.
He did the Flight of the Valkyries.
Yes.
That's free use, right?
That has to be in the public domain by now.
The recording sessions for this song were closed, and if anybody decided to break the rules and try to begin...
He's a vampire, calling it.
Shut up! I'm trying to talk about Phil Spector, for the love of God.
Hey, that was relevant. Vampires, specters, come on.
Okay.
I want to pinch your cheeks.
Okay. The recording sessions were closed, and if anyone decided to break the rules and try to peek in, Spector would immediately grab them, give them an instrument to play on the track.
Bite their neck.
And was pretty much like, hey, you're here now. There's no free passes. You want to look in, you're going to participate.
Hell yeah.
In 2004, the song was ranked 22 by Rolling Stone in its list of the top 500 greatest songs of all time, and described as the Rosetta Stone for studio pioneers such as the Beatles and Brian Wilson.
It's a lofty title.
Yep. Hal Blaine's opening drum phrase, that's the word I want to use, in this song has also become legendary, influencing artists such as the Carpenters in their song Only Yesterday, Billy Joel in Say Goodbye to Hollywood, Taylor Swift in Hey Stephen.
Wait,
what about Stephen?
Elvis Costello's This Town and No Dancing, The Strokes, You Talk Way Too Much, and Meatloaf's song, You Took the Words Right Out of My Mouth.
Meatloaf is dope as hell.
Why are you confused?
Maybe he's thinking about eating meatloaf, but he doesn't realize that Meatloaf was a singer / Broadway performer.
No, I had no fucking idea what any of the songs you were listing had in common. I didn't know what you were talking about.
Oh, the Hal Blaine's opening.
No, I've read it now.
Okay,
You're
so now
too
we
late.
get. Okay. So Brian Wilson, as we all know, of the Beach Boys, was really impacted by the song. He had a super obsession with it. Spector actually once said about Wilson, I'd like to have a nickel for every joint he smoked, trying to figure out how I got Be My Baby sound. Wilson told the New York Times in 2013 that he listened to the song probably more than 1,000 times. To quote, I was in my car with my girlfriend and we were driving around when all of a sudden this guy Wink Martindale, a disc jockey, he goes, all right,
Wink Martindale.
Here we go with Be My Baby by the Ronettes. It started playing and all of a sudden it got to this part, Be My Baby. And I said, what is this? Whoa. I pulled over to the side of the street and went, my God, wait a minute. No way. I was flipping out. I really did flip out. Balls out, totally freaked out when I heard. In a way, it wasn't like having your mind blown. It was like having your mind revamped. It's like once you've heard that record, you're a fan forever. So Brian Wilson really fucking loves Be My Baby.
I don't know.
I don't know. I couldn't tell.
I don't know if I've ever felt that strongly about anything.
I think I've felt that way about songs. Probably not as passionately, but I get the passion. Wilson said that he considers...
Chris, you've never whipped your fucking nuts out when you've heard a song? You've been like, God damn, this is the song.
You're not as dedicated
that
as
my
Brian
goddamn
Wilson.
Nuts need to be free to.
I got some sweaty boys.
And they need to be brought
off the heat from this track.
Can you feel the heat from my loins this track has produced?
I got swamp ass a mile wide.
Okay. So
got the whole damn bayou ass going.
He considers Don't Worry Baby as an answering call to Be My Baby, and at one point instructed Beach Boys engineer Steven Desper to create a tape loop only consisting of the song's chorus. Wilson listened to that single piece of music for several hours in what Desper saw as some sort of trance. Wilson's own daughter, Carrie, recalled hearing the unmistakable boom, boom, pow every day growing up.
Boom, boom, pow, baby.
In 1966, Spector produced Ike and Tina Turner's single River Deep, Mountain High, which he considered to be his greatest production to date.
Whoa.
It reached number 3 on the UK charts, but fell short on the US charts at number 88. That's a pretty big gap.
That's a gap. It's because they didn't have Wham.
That's because they didn't have Wham.
They didn't have that Wham fact.
So
that boom, boom, pow.
Spector became very petty and bitter and went into this weird phase of seclusion for 2 years and didn't do much else for the rest of the 1960s. His first wife, singer Annette Mirror.
Annette Mahal.
Yeah. After that doesn't make any sense.
After he married singer Viviane Bennett in 1968.
The couple.
La Coupelle divorced in 1975. No, I don't know what that was.
Okay, so Spector during this time divorced his first wife Annette and married singer Veronica Bennett of the Ronettes, obviously, in 1968. The couple who divorced in 1974 had adopted 3 children: Dante Philip Spector, Louis Philip Spector, and Gary Philip Spector.
This guy is a bit full of himself. If all of his kids... All of his kids are named after him, in a way. That's so goddamn egotistical.
And they were adoptable. They were adopted. They were adoptable,
Dante
obviously.
Phillips.
We just changed their names?
Yeah.
Dante's not a bad name, but interesting.
It is.
Very interesting.
Ronnie also relates during this time he was very pathologically jealous. He was mentally abusive. He was violent. He had a lot of really bad insecurities, and his children actually described him as a, quote, monstrous father.
Oh, man.
Yes.
I believe it.
He retired away to his mansion
This
to
is
brood.
added to the vampire theory.
Yes. To brood over the music
Spector,
industry and his
pale,
own failure.
Doesn't like fire.
He kept Ronnie virtually prisoner at their own home. She recalled him allowing days to pass
Vampire
by
mind control.
as he obsessively rewatched Citizen Kane, weeping at climatic moments such as when Rosebud, Kane's sled and symbol of childhood joy and innocence, was incinerated. Yeah, Citizen Kane was a remake.
I haven't seen the movie Citizen Kane once.
I haven't either.
People say,
it's
no Citizen Kane.
Yeah, I only know the reference of like when someone says like, oh, this is such and such as Citizen Kane.
Yeah, he obsessively rewatched that movie over and over and over again.
What a nerd.
And then like cried every time.
What a nerd. Crying over sleds and shit.
So things started to turn around for him in the very, very late 60s, early 70s when none other than George Harrison and John Lennon asked him to produce their solo albums.
Who are those guys?
That he finally came out of his hole in 1969.
They are those dudes from that band, right? They had like one song.
Mm-hmm. That's right. He was asked to work on a series of Beatles recording sessions that would end up turning into the album Let It Be. Let It Be topped...
Let It Be where? Or what? When?
Why?
How? Let It Be topped both the US and UK charts at number 1 with the single The Long and Winding Road. Probably to McCartney's distaste, because when the project was completed without his knowledge, he was kind of pissed. Harrison and Lennon kind of went behind his back and was like, hey, we have all these recording sessions. We want to put out one more album. And Spector went, okay. And McCartney didn't even get to look over the results or give it the green light, which was fine because he was a little bit of a control freak anyway. So,
but his name's on the project.
It is.
He got that. He wasn't able to review the project his name was on.
No. And
it's decided every single one of the Beatles was a bad person. Especially Ringo.
But he makes Microsoft Paint art.
And he throws peace and love parties now. So this led to Spector continuing to produce more successful solo albums by Lennon and Harrison. He were both very pleased by the outcome of Let It Be. Of course, I'm sure we all know, or maybe we don't, Lennon was known to be a little...
lemony.
He was a little hostile sometimes in his behavior and his attitude.
Yeah.
But the chemistry between him and Spector was tangible, even recording a cover of Be My Baby. He produced most notably Instant Karma and John Lennon's album Imagine. And he also went on to produce George Harrison's multi-platinum solo album All Things Must Pass, including the famous track My Sweet Lord, and then Yoko Ono's solo album.
We were building up there, Maggie. We were going up and up, and then Yoko Ono's solo album, and then I went,
Sorry. So for All Things Must Pass, which reached number 1 in 1970, Spector provided a cathedral-like sonic ambience, completed with ornate orchestrations and gospel-like choirs. The LP yielded 2 major hits, My Sweet Lord, which came out to number 1, and What Is Life at number 10. Andrew, shut the fuck up!
I just want to participate.
I know. In 1971, Spector was named director of the Do you want to read this?
Well, I mean,
we are.
You're both reading it. Okay. Sorry. In 1971, Spector was named director of A&R for Apple Records. He held the post for only a year, but during that time, he co-produced the single Power to the People with John Lennon, topping at number 11, as well as Lennon's chart-topping album Imagine, which reached number 3. I'm going to go
I didn't do anything that time.
Which, is it you?
What?
Someone's whispering along still.
I think you're hearing things.
I'm not. Okay. I hate you. With Harrison, Spector co-produced Bangladesh, which came out at number 23, and wife Ronnie Spector's Try Some, Buy Some, which came out at number 77 on the charts. That same year, Spector recorded the music for the number 1 triple album, The Concert for Bangladesh. The album later won Album of the Year award in 1972. Whoa. And despite being recorded live, Spector used up to 44 microphones simultaneously to still create his trademark wall of sound.
God damn.
What was going on in Bangladesh?
What the hell was going on in Bangladesh that year?
George Harrison went out there. He went out there with like Bob Dylan and a few other artists, I'm pretty sure.
But why?
They were doing
that's not the event. There was something happening in Bangladesh, and then those people went to that.
Yeah, it was like a charity show that they did.
But why?
What
was the charity for?
Yeah,
and why?
I want to know about Bangladesh, not those fuckers.
I know. I don't remember his name. Someone that Harrison met when they were in India.
Was it one of like the gurus or whatever he met with?
No, it was a musician.
The guy who taught him sitar.
Yeah, it was that guy.
Okay,
I don't remember his name.
What? I don't put it on.
What?
I'm asking, was there like some humanitarian crisis in Bangladesh?
I think there... Oh my God.
Well, while Meg looks that up, I will continue from Sadly. Okay. Sadly, Spector's behavior as the 70s progressed became more bizarre and reclusive, leading to tensions between the former Beatles members and him, and they eventually had parted ways. Spector was known to be dictatorial, quixotic. Meg, how do you even say that word?
Quixotic.
What does that mean?
Quixotic.
What does it mean?
I literally looked up the definition yesterday, and I do not remember. I'll look it up for you right now.
All right. So while Chris looks up that definition for me, while Meg looks up what happened in Bangladesh for him.
Don't bother, because I'm about to read it, and there's no point filling that small amount of space.
I found it.
Okay.
This is from George Harrison's website. In 1971, hearing Ravi Shankar's distress, George helped organize the Concert for Bangladesh at MSG in New York. At the time, the country was being ravaged by floods, famine, and a civil war, which left 10 million people, mostly women and children, fleeing their homes. The Concert for Bangladesh was one of the most ambitious humanitarian efforts in rock history and focused global attention on the crisis in Bangladesh while raising new awareness of UNICEF and its roles in developing the world.
And that's wonderful.
So that's what happened.
I'm glad I know that.
Well, that's just really cool.
And that is from www.georgeharrison.com.
For those of you that want to check our sources, once again, that is www.georgeharrison.com on the internet. Which, if you are hearing this and haven't heard of the internet, that is alarming.
If you haven't heard of the internet,
may I spread to you the good word of the internet?
You can spread the good word of Philip K. Spector. I don't like the way that almost sounded.
Philip K.
Even a little
Spector.
No. Sadly, Spector's
I already read that.
Oh.
Okay.
Because remember I was asking about quixotic, and then you were like, let me look that up.
Okay.
Which you were doing.
Exceedingly idealistic, unrealistic, and impractical.
Boom. Quixotic. So he was that. Driven by his own unwavering belief of his own genius and unquenchable thirst for success. Musicians like Paul Simon and Neil Diamond were open with Spector about experimentation of their sound, often coming to the studio with maybe 2-3 lines written to a song and letting Spector just sort of take the reins and see where it would go.
Pretty much. I mean, that's just how Spector worked in general. Because, like, I was watching... Oh, I still don't remember the name of it. But there's a great new John and Yoko documentary on Netflix, which isn't really that new, but it's new for me. I think it's called Above Us Only Sky. That's what it's called. And obviously, Spector had produced Imagine.
Yes.
So there was like a lot of video
clips. Could you
clips.
Imagine that?
No. And so there were like a lot of clips of like him like being there like in John's kitchen and in the studio kind of working with him. And John pretty much followed Spector really, really closely. Like he trusted him so much with his music. So when Spector would like, they would be hanging out and like eating breakfast and whatever, and like everybody would be there, including George Harrison, who did a lot of the guitar tracks for that album.
Yeah.
They would just be hanging out, and then all of a sudden Spector would be like, "All right, let's go make some music," and John would be like, "Okay, everybody, let's go," and he would like pick up all of their stuff for them and put it in the sink, and then they would all just head down to the studio for hours at a time.
They just left stuff in the sink for hours and hours and didn't do the dishes. Oh my gosh!
Well, I'm sure somebody did, but they didn't. John and Yoko usually didn't get out of bed until almost 5 p.m.
What the fuck?
Yeah, so
that sounds awful.
Yeah, so then everybody would come over to have quote unquote like breakfast at like 6 or 7, and then they would wait a few hours and basically record all night.
That sounds awful.
I would probably...
Chris, are you taking notes on a napkin?
Yes.
Do you want paper? I have a notebook in my bag.
I'm a Silicon Valley startup genius. No, I think I've taken all the notes that I was going to. We'll see.
Okay.
So yeah, that was just my little reign about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, It makes sense given like Spector's like looming shadow over the music industry. He was a fucking producer for like 20 years now almost.
Yeah,
and like produced some hella successful tracks. So these guys who grew up listening to that stuff were probably like, "Oh yeah, dude, do whatever the fuck you want with our music."
Yeah, especially because, you know, he was like an American music producer, and like it wasn't until the late 50s when like John started listening to Elvis and a lot of like the gospel music that came out of America, including music like the Ronettes and the Crystals, because he was really influenced by black music in his own songwriting.
Yes.
That would make a lot of sense because Spector did produce a good chunk of all of those hit tracks.
So like it's not too hard to imagine them like when this guy that produced all the music they grew up with was like, "Yo, let me just do my thing," and they must have been like, "Yes."
Hey, I see you doing your thing.
But what if we didn't?
Hey, your shit sucks.
My
shit
gonna be
my shit
not
fucks.
sucks. My shit fucks.
So we're gonna
Phil Spector probably.
We're gonna start getting into some of the more
1973.
fucked up Spector facts. So throughout,
like that he's a ghost.
Yes. So throughout the 70s, Spector worked sparsely, you know, every now and again, producing albums by Leonard Cohen,
I could do that.
Dion DiMucci, and then in
Make albums with
1979,
Leonard
the
Work
Ramones.
sparsely.
I know.
That'd be nice.
But it was at
Ooh.
this point that Spector's habits had eclipsed his talent and success that he had in the 50s and 60s, and he was
So what
gaining
you're
a bit of a
saying
reputation.
is he got too big for his
He
britches.
sure did for his
I
little,
used that phrase
his little
earlier today.
spooky britches.
No.
He had a reputation
fun.
of waywardness. He had a problem with drinking. He would often cause
In
scenes
britches.
in restaurants, and most notably, he carried a shoulder holster around his home. He wouldn't go anywhere without it, pretty much.
What do you mean he had a reputation for waywardness? What does that mean?
Wayward?
Like just sort of like being like aloof and like
Yeah.
like not present sort of deal,
Yeah.
maybe.
Okay. Yeah, that's sort of what I thought, but wasn't sure.
Like
Um,
his soundtrack was just Kansas's Carry On, My Wayward Son.
Yes.
Somehow it just played aloud wherever he was.
Of
Of his butt.
Out
Yep.
of his butt. He
A
was
friend-
carrying on.
He was
Like,
dummy thick, and he clapped his ass at the specific vibration that he needed to excite the surrounding air molecules and produce Kansas's "Carry On My Wayward Son."
So-
Audibly. You could hear it in fucking pots and pans in Moscow.
so I had the idea.
no, I don't know.
It's a good idea that if there were to be a female Biggie Smalls cover group, they should be like Thicky Dumb or something like that.
Biggies.
Thicky Dumb instead of Dummy Thick, because I was saying that with someone. I don't remember why or when or how.
Why
like,
or when or why or when or how?
But like they had said it backwards. They were like, "Oh, well, I'm obviously Thicky Dumb," and I'm like, "Yes," but that's like that would have to be your hip hop stage name. Like, yo, what up? It's me, Thicky Dumb,
Lil Thicky.
Lil Thicky Dumb,
I'm
Here,
done. I'm done with you. guys.
Popping off.
You
popping
guys
off
are-
with MC Lil Thicky Dumb.
Yep, that's what it is.
That's what it be.
It really do be like that sometimes.
Yep. So
Some like a mile in my shoes.
I'm gonna keep going. A friend once commented, Phil wanted to be Elvis and Sinatra combined to be this
You
cool.
can't be two people at once.
I know.
Physics don't work like that.
To be
Even
this-
if you are a ghost.
Actually, possession.
Yeah, that's true. He basically wanted to be this cool.
But that would imply that he is the ghost of one of those people
Oh my
possessing the
fucking
other
God.
person.
Can I get through the sentence and then you can make your irrational comments?
Fine.
Throws Ben down. Okay, thank you. Let it sit. No one's picking it up. It's like when the
Aha!
another pen. Where was I? Okay, yes. A friend once commented that Phil wanted to be Elvis and
geez, I'm
Sinatra
scrolling
combined to be this cool, aloof thing, the entourage, all that protected crap. He just like
Like that movie?
yeah.
The Entourage?
I thought it was a TV show.
Was it both?
It was both. It was a TV show, then it was a movie, I believe. Both of which had Mark Wahlberg? Or a Wahlberg?
Mark
I
Wahlberg
believe
wasn't
it was.
around during this time.
No, but he was in the show The Entourage, I think.
Was he?
I think so.
Is that an HBO series?
No.
Showtime.
I
don't know. While Andrew looks that up, I'm gonna.
How
keep
did you know
going.
I was looking up at The Entourage?
Once while recording with Lennon, Spector let off a live round into the ceiling of the studio.
Bang!
And while recording with Leonard Cohen, he approached the singer, clutching a bottle of Jewish ritual wine in one hand and a pistol in the other, to which he stuck into Cohen's neck and whispered, "Leonard, I love you." And Cohen simply moved the barrel away, replying, "I hope you do, Phil." The control freak was starting to lose control.
So, it was
What
HBO,
a
Meg.
fucking whack job.
Isn't
It was
that nuts?
HBO?
Yep.
HBO's
Okay, so Mark Wahlberg was the show's executive producer,
Oh, well, at least you were right about something.
and his premise is loosely based off of Wahlberg's experiences as an up-and-coming film star.
That's
Cool.
actually very funny.
So,
Kevin Conley was in it.
I don't know who that is.
I do. Spector suffered from severe
Other than that, I don't know
anxiety
anyone
of
else in it.
abandonment and being alone in general. Stories from this era are saturated with Spector often refusing guests out of his home.
Like
and
Mark Wahlberg?
Yes, and he would lock the doors
Nice.
and warn that his guard dogs would rip them to shreds if they tried to leave.
Is this fucker Ramsey Bolton?
Yeah, he's fucking nuts. One of the most incriminating moments of the case against Spector, which we will talk about in the next episode.
Stay tuned.
Were the testimony of 5 women who claimed that Spector, while drunk, had threatened them with guns and when they would try to leave, which incited a pattern of behavior that the prosecution argued foreshadowed the incidents involving Lana Clarkson.
He was like,
also talk about later.
He was like, yo, bros, I'm going to put a cap in dat ass if you leave.
Yep, that's what he said. It was mentioned that while Spector was known for his wild and erratic behavior, he was also known to be rather charming and amusing company. So he was kind of like two different sides of the same
So this dude was basically a serial killer.
Yeah, he was nuts. Women often described him as mesmerizing.
That sounds too positive.
This sounds very serial killery, because that's how every serial killers are. Like, everyone's like, oh, he's so charming and he's so nice, and then he stuck a knife between my ribs and wore my face as a mask.
Looking at him, I thought that theoretically, if someone made a TV show, Zac Efron should play him. I don't know who Zac Efron is,
but I bet he's really handsome.
He sounds like a hottie.
He sounds like a hot piece of meat, if you know what I'm saying.
Yep. in the early
hot meat.
In the early 1960s, Spector had actually begun seeing a psychiatrist, but that was probably to avoid being drafted into the army.
Oh my gosh, he was a draft dodger?
Yeah,
probably because he was a ghost.
It wasn't until later
Ghosts
in
can't
life.
fight in wars, unless you're talking about the skeleton war.
Here's a really fucked up Spector fact. Spooky Spector fact.
Oh, spooky Spector fact.
It wasn't until later in life that Spector revealed that his parents were actually first cousins. And that may have had a large impact on the state of his mental health.
Yeah,
calling into account his sister Shirley, who spent much of her time in and out of mental institutions.
That's what happens when you're
incestuous.
When that happens.
Oh my God. Rock history is full of fucked up
people
things.
Marrying cousins fucking and making rock stars that are ghosts.
That's right. In 1974, Spector was met with a serious car accident that pretty much left him declared dead at the scene when a police officer detected a very faint pulse after being thrown through a windshield.
Wear your seatbelts, kids.
He was
while you're listening to this podcast, especially if you listen to it while commuting. If you find out on any of your various podcast streaming platforms, wear a fucking seatbelt.
And if you're one of those pricks who's like, oh, well, sometimes wearing a seatbelt is actually, some people have died because...
Then you're a fucking dumbass. Put your goddamn seatbelt on.
They care about you. They're getting really passionately.
I don't even care about them.
I just don't want you to fly through your windshield and damage my car.
Okay. They're going to boycott us. In 19...
the people who don't wear seatbelts?
They're probably going to die soon anyway because they're dummies not wearing seatbelts. Who knows what else they're not doing? Probably not using proper protective gear while using power tools. Probably too deaf to even hear us anyways. They don't wear earplugs.
To kind of scare you a little bit more, Spector was admitted to the hospital with serious head injuries and several hours of intensive surgery. He took 300 stitches to the face, 400 to the back of the head.
Wow.
Soon after, he took to sporting flamboyant, long-haired wigs, possibly to conceal some of his facial scarring, but also perhaps to cover up some of the psychic... I forgot someone said this. To cover up some of the psychic damage to his inflated ego and the inevitable fact of aging in such a youth-oriented musical market.
Consider me goddamn bamboozled.
He looked terrible.
And spooked.
Spector began to reemerge later in the decade, producing and co-writing a controversial 1977 album by Leonard Cohen entitled The Death of a Ladies' Man.
What was so controversial about it?
I am going to tell you.
Thank you.
Angered many devout Cohen fans who preferred his stark acoustic sound to the orchestral and choral wall of sound that the album contains. The recording was fraught with difficulty, and after Cohen had laid down practice vocal tracks, Spector mixed the album in studio sessions rather than allowing Cohen to take a role in the mixing, as Cohen had previously done before. Cohen remarked that the end result was grotesque, but also semi-virtuous, and for many years he included a reworked version of the track Memories in live concerts. So he didn't like what Spector did at all.
Right, but he still calls it like virtuoso. So it's one of those things like he didn't like how it sounded for him, but he respected the art of it
because
he refers to it as like virtuosity.
It wasn't his sound at all. It was Spector's sound.
Virtuosity.
Basically just going through another outlet of another artist. Which
seems to be
cool.
Which seems to be this guy's MO is like, hey, I'm gonna do my thing just with your music.
Oh, I don't think that's true for like All Things Must Pass though.
I don't know. At least the way we've described him so far, it just seems like that's this guy's MO is like, I'm gonna.
Whether it's because the people are like, yeah, come do your thing, or he's like,
or
hey,
I'm gonna do my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to be this guy's deal. He's just like, I'm gonna come do my shit on your shit, and you're gonna
get
like
that
it.
Spector gunk all over you.
Yeah, I'm gonna get that ectoplasm all over your sound.
Yep. I don't even know.
Spunk.
A Spector spunk.
Spector spunk.
Spector
Spunk.
also produced. Spector also produced the much publicized Ramones album End of the Century in 1979.
Whoa.
As his work with Leonard Cohen, End of the Century received criticism from Ramones fans who were angered over its radio-friendly sound.
Can't make punk radio-friendly, then it's not punk.
Yep. The album consisted of songs such as Rock and Roll High School, Do You Remember Rock and Roll Radio, and a cover of the Ronettes' Baby I Love You. Rumors circulated for years that Spector had threatened members of the Ramones with a gun during those recording sessions.
Well, that's not very cash money of him.
Nope. Dee Dee Ramone claimed that Spector once pulled a gun on him when he tried to leave a session.
That's why you always pack heat, son.
See, he was always bringing that
so
fucking gun everywhere.
So in case Phil Spector rolls up on you threatening to kill you, you can threaten him back.
That's right.
Hey, just so you know,
that's the only way you can stop him.
When you're disrespectful to your parents, Phil Spector knows. And he's coming for you.
And
him and his flamboyant wigs are going to show up.
He's going to
gun. Oh, God.
He's gonna shoot you right in the mouth.
You guys all have to go, as long as you're not driving, and like Google a picture of Phil Spector from his trial. He looks fucking batty. He does not look good. Have you seen them?
No.
From a little bit.
I don't want to look though.
Yeah, it's terrible. First of all, I think you can see. My goodness.
Phil.
I've been up for a while.
Spector. Look at him. Oh
Holy
my God.
shit, that's so much worse than I thought.
Yeah.
Photo.
He looks bad, dude.
So he has
I
like
would
the
make
big,
a note.
It's the big
Google that.
Is that the one where he has a big fro?
Yeah.
Any of them, all of them.
They're all terrible.
Christ on a fucking bicycle.
So to give you guys,
look at this.
Let me. Holy hell! All right. So for all y'all that are driving and or listening to this podcast in a place where you cannot use your thumbs to tap away at a screen or computer fucking keyboard thing to do this, I'm looking at a little 4-panel one right now. And I'm going to describe to you with my words what he looks like. So let me paint an image into your mind canvas. Picture one. Picture an older gentleman.
Which quadrant is this in?
This would be top left quadrant.
Oh, okay.
In this 4-panel picture. So picture like a almost Mitch McConnell ass face. He kind of has the old man jowls. He has the Mitch McConnell looking glasses. And then like from like, you know, the eyebrows down, he looks basically like Mitch McConnell. But then you get to the top of his head and it looks like he has this ridiculous motherfucking afro thing. But it's not an afro. It literally just looks like he had a long hair wig. And then
just tease the fuck out of it.
He got a literal like 2-gallon like yard weed sprayer. But instead of weed spray, filled it with Aquanet. Which for those of you that don't know is like 80s hairspray. And then just did that for an hour. Because like when you look closely at it, you see like little curls, but they're just standing up.
I think that the hair looks like the type of hair that
looks crispy.
The most overweight character in a children's surfing television show would have.
It would. Also, just the hair's texture, it looks literally crunchy. Like I feel like if you touch the hair, it would sound like if you were like snapping into a Pringle.
Yep.
All right, so the next quadrant is actually his mugshot. This is top right quadrant.
Yeah, we gotta go faster than this.
Come on, Andrew.
Rome wasn't built in a day. So this is him like without a wig. He just looks almost like Johnny Depp's Whitey Bulger.
Yep, but like way worse.
But like way more aged, way more ugly. He has like thinning hair on the sides of his head, and kind of the back of it. His head looks like, and just none on the top of his head that he must have shaved off for his wigs to be secured on. But he looks like like the cliche, like no, like clean shaven hair on the top.
He looks like an old bird.
Yes, he does kind of look like an old bird. So next photo, bottom left quadrant. Thank you for staying along so far. He has this Donny Osmond ass blonde wig, and it looks like a similar style suit. So think like a long blonde bowl cut almost, but like a 70s style one that goes like down to like your eyebrows and your hair is hanging way over your ears. He just looks like he should be on like a generic person dancing in the background in a Scooby-Doo cartoon.
Just a random person who gets thrown in the mix when they're running from door to door haphazardly.
Yes. Or he looks like he kind of looks like Donny Osmond, I feel like. Or like young Donny Osmond. At least that's what comes to mind for me. Don't quote me on that because I don't actually know what young Donny Osmond looks like, but I don't know. That's where just my mind goes. While Chris fact checks me on what the fuck Donny Osmond looks like.
I don't know what Donny Osmond looks like. All of the coffee that I drank today is wearing off right now.
All right, so let me wrap this up then. Last panel. Yeah, that's him now, but like, I need to know what he looked like back in the day.
Okay.
Either way, bottom left quadrant, he looks like this like generic 70s ass dude. Yeah, he has that like that top leftish haircut or like with like the pink background.
Yeah,
like he has that.
He has a literal if
like
you
a
took,
70s
if you
bowl
took
cut.
a motorcycle helmet
but made it out of
made
hair.
It that's
his
it.
face.
And not like a modern
like an old
angular
school like helmet. And
black, just no visor.
And then the last one, he has this like wig on that looks like a wet dog.
Yeah.
In the bottom right quadrant.
He looks like a wet
cute.
dog, or the wig looks like
the wig looks like a wet dog.
But he also kind of
looks like a wet dog. He doesn't have glasses on in any of these except the weird crunchy fro picture.
He used to wear
also.
sunglasses all the time.
Well, he just has like he has spectacles on. His Spector spectacles.
I wonder how many tons his wig is rated to.
Dude, his wig probably has some tonnage. And this Leslie has like this like wet dog ass look in the last one with like kind of longish hair. He looks like an aging like B-level rock star that is coming back because like their song was used in one movie, so now they're trying to like do a tour to like ride that fame. But you know they haven't been doing anything in a while.
They say that the one redeeming thing that Phil Spector ever did was there was a school bus of children whose parents loved them a lot, and so did everybody else, and they were the smartest kids that had ever lived, and they were on a bus, and they were driving down up a mountain, and there was a dangerous pass, and there was a hole, and Phil Spector he put on his walking shoes, and he put on his 7-ton freighted dual lane vehicle carrying wig.
Are you saying
and he fucking ported those children across the fjord, and they got safe to where they were going, and that's where they're keeping the cure for cancer.
And then, as a twist, because he needs to terminate that sweet karma neutral, he shot one of the kids after he shot them.
Oh my god.
But spit out the bullet.
Sacrifice to Lord Spector.
To Lord Spector. So
Darth Spector.
Well, that's how he obviously maintains his fro collection, is he sacrifices young blood to the elder gods of shitty fake hair.
His hair is actually a weapon, like Bayonetta.
Yeah.
Oh, I like it. So what do you think like the fro then is just like
electric power, first of all.
Well, obviously deals electric damage. Would you insinuate that he like takes it off and like rolls it at people?
No. Oh no. It's not quite sapient, but it's sort of like a side by side AI like Jarvis.
Okay.
And
I'm on board.
It's Jarvis mixed with Doctor Strange's cape.
Okay.
And it's
so
like
there's
bo. It's that nose hair. It's
Does anyone else remember that show and jump show Bo?
What a fucking masterpiece.
All I remember is there was a literal sentient little sun man. That was one of his sidekicks.
Maybe.
No, that was
no. I believe
and he had
you're right.
He had like a Brooklyn accent in the dub.
I'm saying that maybe I'll make Meg watch that while I fall asleep.
Yeah.
She's about to throw
So for
up.
those of you that are listening, let me paint another picture for you of Meg literally losing her shit because we have taken her 7 pages of stuff
She got
absolutely
through
off
like
the rails.
most of it.
Yeah, Meg, you got through most of it. You got to give us some slack here.
There's a centimeter left between the bar and the bottom, which actually might be more frustrating.
Meg, we've been such good boys. Come on, let's have some fun here. All right, finish.
Let her finish.
Talk about Bo.
And how about this? We'll leave it to her to very awkwardly edit clips from when we've just been talking into tiny spaces while she's reading, and it'll all be non sequiturs. Nothing will be related, but it'll just be a non-stop
party. This show was so fucking weird. Holy shit.
And in 3, 2, 1, it's Meg.
I was gonna go, but I can't. Okay.
Just like,
back on track.
Go.
Despite his odd and strange behavior, Spector in 1989 was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. His father, what is that? Oh my fucking god. So between his father's suicide, his divorce from Ronnie, and the deaths of Lenny Bruce and John Lennon, like his youthful fall from the pinnacle of professional success, Spector was left with these devastating losses from which he never recovered, pretty much, which didn't help his already super fragile mental health.
Chris, there was also a GameCube game about that show.
I am done with the both of you. During an interview in December of 2002, Spector talked about his struggles with mental health and admitted that he took prescription drugs for schizophrenia, though he wouldn't say he was a schizophrenic. He admitted that.
So he's not a schizophrenic, but he takes drugs for schizophrenia.
Yeah, which doesn't make any sense.
I'm not a schizophrenic. I just take drugs for schizophrenia.
He was admitted.
No big deal.
He admitted that to some degree he was probably insane, but that the worst was behind him. That he was trying to be, quote, a reasonable man, and being reasonable with yourself, it's very difficult. And then 5 weeks later, he left the House of Blues in Los Angeles with Lana Clarkson, who was never to be seen alive again. And that's where I will end it.
Oh, man. We just ended on the hangiest of cliffs.
Yep.
We are hanging on.
So the next episode of our 2-part Phil Spector episode will focus more on his psyche. I found a really good article of a psychiatrist and psychologist who actually kind of delved into Phil Spector's mind a little bit and basically did a criminal profile of him. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll go over the trial and whatnot.
Are we going to go like Ace Attorney Phoenix Wright on this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Someday, if we're rich and famous, I'm going to make an episode where I just do my Gaston is the protagonist of Beauty and the Beast presentation.
Yeah. I forgot about that presentation.
You showed me that the first night that we really met and hung out, and you were really drunk, and you said, I need you to come over so I can show you this project that I did.
If anyone wants to hear or see Chris's Gaston,
Venmo me $3
and we will send you the whole PowerPoint.
And I was like, okay. And then you got up and...
Or what if we do like a deluxe?
And you did this really dramatic presentation of your slideshow.
I think the more more money you put into the Chris Gaston Patreon page, the more dramatic the reading is. Yeah. So if you drop like $1 in, it'll be an okay reading. But if you drop like $20 in there,
goals will include doing it while drunk, doing it while high, doing it after taking Adderall, doing it
on all
the
of
drugs
those
will
things.
only get harder. Oh God in heaven, that would be awful. I can't take credit for coming up with that though, because that was a theory, or that was a thing that somebody wrote on Reddit, and I'm just realizing now that I should have credited that person, but I never did.
Oh my God, you didn't credit your sources?
I'm sort of a trash person.
Yeah.
Well, random Redditor, if you are a listener to our show,
I could find it.
I probably could too, but I like to just address it, and maybe he or she or they is out there.
Oh, I doubt it.
Maybe.
And maybe they're listening to our show, and if so, Chris is sorry he didn't credit you for that one college presentation he did where he ripped off your Reddit post.
Here's what I will say is that I watched the entire movie, took notes on my own, and developed my own addendums to the theory, up to and including conversations regarding the species of wolf that is featured in the movie and how that relates.
That sounds
to the
about
geography.
right. Actually, I feel like I remember that.
Yeah, I don't remember what fucking kind of wolf they were, but it
all makes sense.
It all makes sense. Okay, so
unlike this episode where me and Chris take it off the rails. Sorry, Meg.
As always, it's fine. All right, so this episode, Life of Phil Spector. Next episode, Life of Convicted Murderer Phil Spector. Like I said, we're going to go over his trial. Make sure to look on our website because I'm going to cite all of our sources.
As we do, unlike what Chris did with this presentation.
Yes, and
Sorry,
I'm going to put up also some great YouTube videos that you guys can check out if you want to learn more. I am a huge rock and roll fan, and I'm also a huge true crime fan. So Phil Spector is like my wet dream to talk about. So yeah, thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
I decided I'm going to make a playlist of all of Phil Spector's greatest hits.
And we're going to post it on the right Spotify page this time. We are going to post
it on the right Spotify page this time. So I will have that link up for you as well.
So you can listen to that before or after the episode to get an idea of what the fuck we're talking about.
Yes, the wall of sound is...
it's like a wall of sound.
It's going to challenge your ear a little bit, which I think is what makes it fun. And a lot of those songs are really good tracks too. So I think you guys are going to jam out to some great oldies.
Ooh.
And it's going to be fantastic. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram. What's the other thing? The Tweeter, at Podcast Sky or at Podcast in the Sky with Diamonds will pop up. You cannot miss us. And make sure to give us a follow on all your favorite streaming platforms and download all of our fun episodes. I'm going to get some more great interviews ready as well.
Yes, we will.
Great people in mind. Okay.
So do I.
Awesome. Well, we can discuss that after the show.
All
right. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, rockers and rockettes, we will see you next time. Have a great rest of your evening, day, whatever it is that you're experiencing right now.
Stay safe. Stay hydrated.
Sleep well. Thanks.
Wear your seatbelt.
Please.
Wear
your seatbelt.
We can't lose any more viewers to car crashes.
Who did we lose?
I don't know if I like that.
Mending it on a cliffhanger because this whole show's a cliffhanger. We're going to do 2-parter. Bye!